I'm going to hit record and then share my stuff again. But thank
Okay.
you. Okay. All right. Well, welcome, Cindy and Caroline on the line, and anyone who's watching this afterwards. I know we have people from all across the world, so your time zone, you may be sleeping right now and not able to catch us live. Please know that any questions you have or further discussion you want to have, we could talk about that in the program. Of course, you can start a discussion anytime. And of course, at the end of our time in the virtual program together, then you get one-on-one call with me. So you may have a question related to that. You can use our Facebook group to continue this conversation. I mean, Cindy, who's on the line, she's already got products and services. I think she's always hungry to explore more. And just double check it. Yeah, so just letting you know that I'm going to be sharing some of the things that I've done in my business to try to expand out having additional products and services. And I want to talk with you about some of the things that you can do so that it doesn't cost you money or cost you very little money. And also, how do you strategically decide what is the right product and when do you want to build that out? And of course, all of this said, we are not perfect people. Our businesses aren't perfect. Some of this stuff's going to be trial and error. Don't beat yourself up if you try that. You know, I mean, I've sold products to you, Cindy, that you love, and other people, you know, don't buy that many of them. And then all of a sudden I'll get a rush on certain products and I'll be like, oh, I thought nobody wanted that product anymore. So much of what we're going to talk about is this is what we're learning about so far. And like anything, your business is constantly a learning journey. Isn't that the case, right? So as we kind of explore this topic, this is, of course, on many levels, we want to benefit from having products and services. Of course, this is about what might be some additional money that we can bring into our business, but also what are our customers asking for already? And what are they ready and willing and wanting to buy from us? They have the answers. The great news, everybody, we don't have to come up with the answers about what the product or service is. They are already telling us. And if we ask them even more strategically and directly, they will tell us as well. When we have done that, both brought in some revenue through not just our direct constantly trading our time for money, but also we have products and services that can lead to some passive revenue. And we've let our clients really guide us so that they're selling, of course, because they want it, but also we can feel confident that we don't have to do this incredibly time-consuming and laborious market research and all of those things. I got to be honest with you, I'll probably never teach you about the whole really deep, thorough analysis side of starting up a business. It's just not how I roll. There are people out there who are rock stars at it. There's incubators and people who just rock that way. I don't. I've been able to build a successful six-figure business by listening to my customers, listening to my gut, and being super clear on the value I offer, which allows me to just relax, frankly, and have more time to be developing products. One of the biggest questions I get from folks is, how have you developed so many products and services already? And I have to tell you, remember that we're going to talk about this in a second. It all goes back to that core greatness biz formula that we talked about. When you have credibility because you're an expert in something, when you are clear on your core product or service and how this helps just further add the value that you have to that product or service, when you serve and you listen to your core clients, those easiest people who want to keep buying from you, and you find ways to make your business sustainable, I'm telling you, it is so easy to come up with products and services and source them as well, because I'm going to talk about both of those things. And this allows us, frankly, to just do more of what we love. Because unless you are big into research, which some of you may be, it's probably not something that sounds really enjoyable. And this is why sometimes people don't create products that complement their core services, and why they always trade their time for money their entire business, because they want to just do what they love. And so many of the people that I work with, coaches, consultants, trainers, speakers, virtual assistants, tech people, like you want to just do the great work that you're doing. So what if products or service could be an extension of the great work that you're doing, and that you love the process of creating those products and services just as much as you love delivering it. Does that not sound great? So my question to you is, and Cindy, you're the only one on the line that's live, so you get to have all the coaching time. My question to you is, imagine a year from now, what will be different if you have an additional source of revenue in your business through a product? What might that do for you in your business, Cindy? I've unmuted you. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, it'd be another source of income, which would be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think also too, it's they kind of can double as a marketing tool, sort of, because other people may see want them. I think it would help reinforce the coaching and the training that I'm already doing. You know what I'm hearing, and I was doing some training the last 2 days, and you had mentioned in the Greatness Biz group that you were kind of trying to listen to what people wanted and deal with it right there, so you can build it in the training, which I tried and was awesome. But
nice. Woohoo!
Yeah. So part of what, always I hear is kind of, how do you make this last longer? Because the training's great, but what are some tools that they can use to practice with or kind of make it more intentional for themselves later? So that got me really thinking about what might I be able to put together? What kind of a toolkit for them?
I love it.
But
and you know what? I so want to just hold the space for you, Cindy, is that when people were saying that in your training, when the moment that they said to you, oh, how can we do more of this? Or how can we make this last longer? There's a product right in that moment. Whatever you just did in the room, they need a product to do that.
Okay. That's great.
Think about like that. I love how you're bringing that into your sessions now with you. Now you're going to be listening to, I'm curious. And you may ask them questions afterwards. Like, by all means, those people who said that to you, you could ask them, I'm willing to do that for you. Would you mind if we had a conversation so that I could really understand what was it that drove you to give me that feedback? Because I bet you there's something I could produce for you. Yeah. Love it, Cindy. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, that just made me think about a whole different thing. So thank you. Yeah.
Good.
I think the other thing that will be different, actually, Sarah, as we're talking about this, is thinking about this kind of stuff and building them really gives me more energy. So I think I have more energy for my business as well.
Oh, I love that. And Cindy, what's so cool is that you have a successful business already and you're pivoting. So keeping the energy to keep pivoting when you're so good at this first core business that you have, finding some energy through the creative process. And I don't mean like creative process as in we have to be artists. That's not what I mean. I don't mean creative in their certain types of people. I just mean this curious, exploratory, open, which I know you rock. And so many of the people in this program rock that. I rock in that way too. I love thinking of those ideas. I know you're super service oriented. Again, lots of people who are attracted to the tribe that I get a chance to work with are also very service mindset like that. So I'm really excited that you will have even more energy and excitement to continue to pivot and to be directing, even in the times where you're not getting hired to do this specific work in your new pivot area. Maybe you can still stay present in that business model through the creative process of creating these products and services. Oh, I'm so excited. All right. And unmute yourself anytime. Cindy, by the way, did you want to say anything else more about that?
No, we're great.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. I love that you already got some good stuff already. We're just on the tip of the iceberg with this woman. That's so great. Okay. So a couple things we're going to talk about. In every webinar, we always try to bust limiting beliefs and myths. We come with certain beliefs and myths like, I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I'm not a creative person. There's so many things we can get caught up in our own head around I'm not enough. So we're going to, whether we directly try to target those things or you just start to have your own aha moments about some limiting beliefs that you've been carrying around that you may not have even realized you had. We're going to be busting those. And then at times I'm just going to be like calling it out. Okay, guys, you probably are thinking this. I'm going to call BS on that, right? Number two is I really want to help you with your product creation. I'm going to put everything, again, all the webinars are in the context of that Genius Greatness Biz formula, because, and the reason why we do that is that I want to always be true to the model, like always keep going back to the roots, so that when we do something like create a new product, we're not squirrel, you know, because we can all do that. I mean, every one of us can, especially when we're excited. So that's always going to ground us in every webinar, and all the modules you do with me, that's going to ground us. But the cool thing is when you stick true to that model, that's what actually allows the acceleration, because you stay focused and on track. And then finally, I'm going to share with you 5 hacks. Like I sat there as I was tweaking this webinar further this week, and I thought, if I were in the shoes of somebody on this webinar, what would I most want to learn? And I actually completely changed the end of the webinar, because I thought, you know what? I'm Scottish by background. I don't like to spend money. So, you know, sorry, that was a terrible Scottish accent. I want to reduce expenses, or maybe even pay nothing for it. And so many of the products and services I've managed to find really inexpensive ways to produce it, been able to call in favors. Sometimes even my clients have been the ones to pay for it, and then I can sell it to other people after that. And everything I'm going to share with you is completely ethical. I'm not sharing stuff I sold privately to one person. I just mean that's part of how you prove that something is valuable, is that somebody wants it. You create it because they're ready to buy it. And then here you go. You've got a product to sell other people. Okay, so really quick context for those of us who don't come to this webinar with a marketing knowledge, and I'm the first one to say I am not a marketer. I've had to learn a lot about marketing, and man, that was one of the things I didn't know anything about when I started. I came from the not-for-profit sector. What do we know about marketing? Patients just kept coming and coming. We wanted to stop the patients from coming sometimes. So having clients was never my problem ever in my career. So for the first time, I had to figure this out. So let's just, for some of you, because I know a lot of folks also haven't had to think about the sales funnel, here's a basic sales funnel. People have to be aware of what you do. And you actually talked about this, Cindy, already, about having products can be a form of marketing. It actually can widen your funnel, because as people are using your product, and I'm going to share with you some hacks, and we can get into having discussions about this, but how you actually produce your products allows people to see you. So I want to give you an example so I don't forget these things as we're going. You'll notice, so my latest product was Frog Tributes. Cindy, you know about them. Other people on the line may not. And it has my website on it. So if somebody is given a compliment card, so Cindy, actually, you would be perfect for this card. You have an infectious and welcoming smile. So I'm going to virtually give you that compliment. So, but let's say we're physically in the same room. I give you that compliment. You take it with you. You may think, that was really nice receiving a compliment. How can I get some of these? Well, there's my website, my co-author's website, Brenda, who I produce them with. And it has my brand, Frog, Forever Recognize Others' Greatness, that trademark brand. So I might think, what's this Frog thing about? And it's not about the recognition brand, it's about giving people a compliment. But the way in which the card's designed has consistent branding, which is the frog and the trademark, and then the link back to my website, so folks can buy it through the store. So that helps open up more prospects, which leads to more leads, which then allows you potentially to pitch. Now, sometimes this is really shortened, protracted. So somebody goes to your website, or you're a store, or like you were talking about before we started recording, Cindy, where somebody goes to somebody else's site and they buy your product. And so the pitch cycle and qualifying lead can be shortened, because they sit there and they decide, am I going to buy it or am I not going to buy it? But for those of us who are service-based entrepreneurs, of which almost everybody in this program is, this also can be part of your pitch. I'm going to share with you in a little bit how I include how people can get products and services in addition to what they've asked me for originally, and they have an option of bundling some of that in. Or I can add more value, or I can give it as a gift to the organizer or as a prize. And if I hold up my book and I say, somebody's going to get this. I'm so excited. The organizers have agreed to let me gift, some lucky winner, my book. If I hold it up, or better yet, if they physically touch it and use it, they're more likely to buy it, as opposed to somebody says on my intro that I'm an author. Well, people will forget by the time, you know, that I have no really relevance or value at that point. When you send a proposal, how can we make sure that people, at least, even if you don't pitch your products in it, but maybe there's something at the bottom of your contract that says, other products and services Cindy has, other products and services Bhaskar has, and then you list them with some links. You can use it as a point of negotiation. So let's say, Cindy, you know, you've got these this really powerful workbook for your coaching clients, and so somebody's haggling you over price. And you could say, well, you know, I'm really conscious of fairness to my other clients who have paid this. But what I can do, though, is I'm happy to give you the workbook that normally is $300. I'm happy to give that to you. Or somebody wants to bring you in and have you teach, then they've gotten such great experience with your coaching themselves that they now want you to do kind of coaching 101 sort of training for all of their leaders so that they can be coach like, but they don't want to pay you your normal full fee. You could say, well, I'll tell you what, I could throw in a workbook for your whole team, you know, up to X number. Here's a tip that I learned the hard way. Speaking at a conference in another country. Do you know how much money it is to ship books to Puerto Rico from Canada, everybody? It's in the 4 figures. I have learned the hard way that you have to put limits on the number of the quantity you're willing to offer some of these negotiated products, and that they have to pay for the shipping. Anyway, live and learn. I'm glad y'all can learn from my mistakes. It actually all worked out fine. The client was really, really great. He let me just give everybody one book rather than the book and the workbook, because it would have just been, oh my gosh, it would have been my speaking fee. Let's just put it that way. And then it also helps you kind of close out and win the deal. I think I've shared with you before that I send a package of goodies to my clients. Let me just quickly show you this. Whoa, where's my lighting here behind me. I send a little package of goodies to clients that are shortlisted for speaking engagements. And it has a copy of my book, my workbook, my Zen Tension booklet, my compliment cards, which are called Frog Tributes, a copy of the handout that they get. And then what I found is an aligned brand little frog eye mask that says, rest easy, you have almost booked your keynote speaker. So that all goes in the courier to a client. The raw costs on that, I mean, you know, it's probably $50. And then depending on where it's shipped, it could be $10. It could be $45 if it's to the US with duty. But you know what? If I get a speaking engagement from it, it more than works. And what's the worst that happens? They don't book me this year. They've got that on their shelf. They put the eye mask on their monitor, and somebody asks them about it. You know, so there's a way of you keeping the pipeline and prospective clients alive by, you know, sometimes investing some money up front by letting clients have your products for free. That's kind of, I think, one of the things you're talking about, Cindy. And it's just something to think about. And then I track it all. And then it comes off of the full amount of what that product is worth comes off of my profits, so that in fact it may actually help me at tax time too. So I'm really, really careful with my inventory, and my shrinkage is what my my bookkeeper calls it. And also some of them we actually just simply buy for marketing costs. So it just goes under that budget line. All right. Enough about that. Back to some of the cool context stuff. So we're going to talk in some of the next part of this webinar, I'm going to talk about how our products and services, how to do that so it builds your credibility. You use your creativity wisely rather than spinning in a million different directions. How do you come up with the next core product or service? How it builds greater connectivity, and that fills that pipeline, and including with repeat clients so that they can keep buying from you, and then reinforces some sustainability too, because the last thing we want is, you know, a system that's completely unmanageable. For example, as a speaker who's away from home, I need to have somebody filling the orders from my store. So if I have had to teach my husband and my daughter how to do that. So welcome, Sonia. So when it comes to credibility, this allows you to reinforce that you are a full service expert. You don't just do one thing. Now, I will say some people want to do just one thing, and that is perfectly okay. However, if you want to be able to demonstrate, and this is a conversation I had with a client this morning. It was somebody in the audience. It's a business owner. He heard me do a keynote a couple of weeks ago. He hopped into my calendar because I follow up with everybody that gives me a business card and or fills out my evaluation form. And he said, I just wanted to have an exploratory conversation. We didn't close any deal today. This was about establishing rapport and further credibility. And what he realized is that there's a variety of ways we can work together, and a confused buyer never buys. So rather than try to encourage him and push him into buying something right away, he has a plan as to he wants to investigate a couple of things before we go ahead and we figure out what that thing is that he's going to purchase. But I think when he buys, he's going to buy a whole suite of products and services. So the key thing that we need to know is, what are the answers to these questions to know how we're going to fully serve our clients as an expert? They say things like, I have a problem. I need, if only it were easier, faster, cheaper. If I could do this myself, that's perhaps, Cindy, your related question with your client, right? If I could make it last, that's definitely what they were looking for. So this is how you start to think about, they trust me enough to want the answer to this question. How can you fill that need by offering the next product or service? And the cool thing is, you're probably going to, now that you're thinking more and more about this, be coming up with ideas all the time. One of the things I do is I bring a book around with me when I go and I'm doing learning activities. So when I'm attending a conference, even if I'm a speaker and I go and I sit in on other people's sessions, or if I'm at my association meetings and so forth, I keep notes, of course, from the session, but then at the back, I have a page for stories so that when I think of things, I don't forget those. And then the next page in is I think of product ideas or other ideas for my business. If you look in every one of my journals, you'll notice the pages, that's exactly the same format every time. Because I'll see other people's products and I'll think, oh, I've been trying to figure out a way that I could do this faster. I bet you they have found a way to do this faster. I'm going to do it that way. So you may see examples of how other people do it successfully and serve their clients' needs. And it's not copying because you're not competing with them. You're not doing the exact same thing that they do. You're just thinking, great example of that is people who try to sell a one-off coaching session. And I went to a mastermind about 1.5 years ago, and they had these CDs printed in a really nice hard cardboard cover. It had a disc, which cost virtually nothing to have printed and this packaging done, like maybe $10 total, of a whole bunch of pre-recorded presentations that him and a whole bunch of his speaking colleagues have done. And then when you buy that, you get that free with a 1-hour coaching session. Do you know, he said that he sells 5 times more one-off coaching sessions because he has something physical to hand people than when he told people, like, I'm available for a one-off coaching session. I mean, he doesn't call it a one-off coaching session, but you know what I'm saying. And I have experienced that same thing with my membership site. So I'm trying to figure out how to have something that they can physically hold. Same with my virtual programs. So the point is, there are so many things other people are doing that have found a way to make this happen. And your clients, as we said, I keep saying in this webinar, your clients already have the answers. They just are not expressing it in terms of, hey, I think you should create this product. All right, here's a great example. Last year's speaker brought her whole series ... That conference I was telling you about when I was speaking in Puerto Rico, somebody said to me, it's unfortunate that you don't have a bunch of resources that I can bring back to my supervisors because I am so excited about recognition. And I said, and we just happened to see each other. I was still on site. She was having a drink. I was waiting for my family. I said, actually I have a membership site. And she said, you didn't mention that in the presentation. Because of course, we're careful about not being too pitchy or salesy But, that's the thing, is that what this particular client or ownership group was asking for is, I need to physically see something in order to buy it. So, but other people have not needed that, but this particular group does. So those words are going to stay in my head until I figure out a way to physically have something that they can get their hands on to be able to buy it. So remember, listen to your clients. You've seen this slide before. This I showed you last time, but it's really still relevant now. Core products, I want to give you examples. Membership sites, virtual programs, workbooks, learning labs, webinar series, a book, a keynote, training, licensing your program or your intellectual property, coaching. Decks of coaching cards. I can show you some of mine. I have these You Are Greatness cards that are really pretty and embossed that people can hand out to folks. As a recognition expert, I have kudos cards. This is a box of 250 people can buy. We've sourced frog charms, and I pay my daughter to tie the ribbon on, and people can hand these out to frog people. I finally found a reliable source for these squishy frogs, which come packaged like this. People can buy 20 in a bag, and again, they can go in frog people. So some of these things I've produced with my co-author, like these. Other things like this intention booklet, I actually designed with my mom. Books, some books I write myself, some books I co-author. But the point is, all of this stuff, it did not take a lot of time to create. And now I have a store full of products and services for folks. And that's what I want to encourage you to think about, is what's the next thing based on what people are asking for? What's the one next thing you want to experiment with and try? And I'm going to give you some hacks about how to get started on that. By the way, if I'm going fast or you want to stop and ask me a question or make a comment, just go ahead and unmute yourself. And it's your time, everybody. My slides are not more important than you, so just stop me anytime. So here's what I was telling you about in terms of serving through sales. The number one question I get asked is, how do I keep recognition going? When it comes to products and services, I get other questions asked related to recognition in general. And here are the main things people buy. They buy the books because they want a copy of it. They can't get enough information in one keynote or even one full day of training, but they want to read the book. They want to take it home, or they want to give it to their boss, to their supervisors, to their husband. I have had a couple of wives buy it for their husband and say, here, just do this with me. But also recognition tools. As I was saying, like these little, I just had for Nurses Week's coming up, I've had 2 orders this week for frog charms and bought a lot of frog charms. I'm going to have to get my daughter to start tying again. And so these things can be cyclical, but when it comes time for when people need your product or service again, then they sometimes put in a big order. These coaching cards, I have a client who about every 2 months orders about 20 decks of them. And we've given him a special price because we want to encourage that behavior to keep buying them at a discount because he's buying them in bulk. The coaching cards that we have, Cindy, you've used these before. This was our very first product because people that we were doing training on a solution-focused approach to recognition, and we were talking a lot around coaching. Folks they thought, oh my gosh, I have enough to learn about recognition and about engagement and about how I am going to be more solution focused. I don't have time to learn about coaching too. So that's what we have here. Now, the key thing about that product, as I've shared with some of you who've been on the webinar before, is we have to teach people how to use these. Hack for all of you around if you're trying to decide between, okay, I've got 3 great ideas. The easiest thing for people to use is your next product. Because if it's not easy for them to use and it requires explanation, if they have a second thing to think about in their buying decision. You want people to decide, can I afford it, or is it now the time, or whatever it is on the top of their mind, as opposed to, do I know how to use it? That's one of the problems with a book is people go, ooh, how many books do I already have on the side of my bed? You don't want to have people to have a reason to not buy your product. It's not easy. I don't have room for it in my luggage, or whatever it is. You eliminate some of the buying challenges and develop the product that you think is going to be easy for people to implement. The membership site is becoming more popular, and then workbooks are kind of last on the list. Workbooks I tend to sell in bulk because everybody will want one, as opposed to, it's sort of like an all or nothing kind of thing. But the great news is, I mean, everything's been developed with an eye to serving people. And sometimes it starts with, I want to delight people by giving everybody at that conference a frog charm. And then they'll say, you know, can I buy them for my own team? And then it's become now a thing on my website, which it wasn't before. So you can experiment by including this in how you do your work. And if people want it, then they will buy it for you. So just, you know, just in case you're worried about, am I ready to go forward and launch it as a new thing I have? You can just use it yourself first, because if you love it and you're getting huge value from it, that energy is infectious. I've shared this with you before too, just something to keep in mind. Again, when you're trying to decide your next product or service, what level have you not yet fulfilled in your offerings? Do you have some free things that maybe you want to be able to use as lead generators? This Greatness Biz Hacks book, or you may have this in electronic form. I produce this for two reasons. One, to demonstrate to my entrepreneurship clients how quick and easy you can produce this. I am going to do a webinar, by the way, one day this year. And tell me if you want it sooner rather than later. I produce this in a little over a day of my time and 6 days of my assistant's time. So you can produce something really fast. That's why I developed that. But also now it's a free lead magnet in an electronic form. Do you want, the next layer up is low cost, low touch. So I now have a very passive virtual program called 52 Weeks of Greatness. But then I also have obviously the virtual program that you guys are in, which is more high touch because I answer your questions and, you know, we do webinars and things like that. But then the highest touch is people who hire me one-on-one to work with them to do coaching, or if that's my time where I have to get on airplanes, or like tomorrow, drive 4 hours to a speaking engagement. So, you know, having something at multiple levels, I know though some people who have products that are at what I charge for my speaking fee that are at that highest level. There's a lawyer in BC who has a $5,000 law kit around how to avoid, you know, being sued your organization for sexual harassment. That's not what it's called. It's something around that. And people see, yes, I will pay $5,000 to get that toolkit, because being sued would be a lot more money than that toolkit. So thinking to yourself, what does a low cost look like for my clients is one of the ways you can think about pricing, and also to know if you have something at each level. And you don't have to have something at each level right away. It's just over time, you want to have things at multiple levels so that people don't kind of drop out of your prospecting list because they don't have something at the touch point and the price point that they're looking for. The connection piece of the model, remember, the advice I give you is yes, absolutely be going out as you're building your business bigger, go out and be prospecting leads that may not be warm leads to you. But for now, as you're starting or you're just growing your business slowly, it's who you already know, who you've already worked with, who you've served, people who know, like, and trust you. So the question then becomes, what else do they need? Your repeat customers, what else do they need? Your former colleagues or your current colleagues as you're transitioning out of a workplace, what do they need? So you have something new is a great way to start that conversation. Hey, you know how we were having a conversation when I delivered that session for you a year ago about how you wanted to be able to bring coaching further into your workplace? Well, I actually developed a deck of coaching cards now that people are loving because it allows them to more comfortably have those conversations. So, and you know, I have that available right now. So you see how you can sort of work through those process. You have something new. This is how it fills a need or a request that they've had and why they may want it now. So why now could be because it's almost the end of your fiscal and you can afford to buy it. Why now could be because I know you're about to embark upon this massive change. Why now could be, I know you just recruited that new CEO who has just written 8 articles on LinkedIn on being coaches, leaders as coaches. So you can position going back out to clients because the now is really relevant. So, but it can be both ways. It could be because you have something new you go out to people, or because the now it's like, aha, I may have produced this a couple months ago, but now's the perfect time to go back out to my client and share this. And to do it sustainably, you have to be able to eat, everybody. Like really, literally, you can't spend all your money. Well, you can do anything you want to, but I don't recommend you spend all your profits on creating these products and having, oodles and oodles of inventory that just makes your bookkeeper with eyes boggle. But for it to be truly passive revenue, here's my suggestion. It needs to be the easiest thing you can possibly make and continue to offer. So how can it be low or no marketing involved in it? My tip earlier about if it's easy to understand, it's easier to sell. But also though, if you're constantly having to run Facebook ads and, pipeline new people in, it gets really, really tiring. And then it doesn't feel like a passive revenue at all. Can it be system enabled, such as the billing and the fulfillment, like what you were talking about, Cindy, around there's somebody who might do fulfillment for you? Amazing. And no low fulfillment tasks. Aligned. There's no explanation needed why it is a natural next step to your brand and how you work with people. You don't have to explain how it's something different or justify why it is aligned to your brand. It's customer request driven, so it's aligned for what they're looking for and needing, and it's the natural next step. So if people do training with you, Cindy, and the next thing they want is a tool that they can go and implement that exact thing that you taught them, then that is a beautiful next product. Brenda and I have written books together, and we have a lot of the same products, but we have a couple that are different because my clients really want these frog charms. And for her, living in 3 countries a year, it doesn't make any sense for her to be carrying around a whole bunch of frog charms everywhere she goes and shipping them from all over the world. Similarly, she has these super deep dive, I think you've probably got them, Cindy, frog metamorphosis, solution focused coaching cards with 2 different sets of decks. I don't dive into solution focused training the way you and Brenda do. So I don't even carry them in my store. I don't carry them. I think I used to, but nobody ever bought them because I never use them. So I don't know what they're for. And I just send them back. I just send them my Brenda's way. So what is the natural next step for you? And it's okay if it is not something that somebody else would choose who's in your industry. In fact, that's probably a good thing because it differentiates you. Last tip around EAT is technology enabled. This does not work for everything. There's no way I can technology enable a deck of cards. But rarely does somebody buy just one thing when they go to the website. It's kind of, they're in for a whole bunch of things if they're going to be in for anything. But can you automate something? So ebooks or your, modules come out one after the other, payments automated. So if, let's say, somebody's paying you on a payment plan for something, so you're coaching, can it just automatically bill to them rather than you have to remember to invoice people? So how can you enable that, make it electronic based? Maybe there's a system that's already been built out there that you don't need to. For example, some people don't build stores on their website anymore. They only sell things on Amazon. And they use a fulfillment center of some other kind, and they have somebody else sell their products for them. It's what works for you, my friends. All right. So we're going to move into 5 hacks. Cindy, do you have any questions up to this point or comments or anything that's percolating you want to chat about? Or if you're good, just thumbs up. If you want to chat, feel free to unmute yourself. You're good. All right, cool. All right. The Scottish in me wants to tell you that there's some ways to save on costs. All right. So number 1, build only once you've sold. Now, by the way, these are not, I'm saying this to you very assertively, but you, of course, can take or leave any of this advice anytime you want, right? But when I built my membership site, I did not build it until I had a corporate client willing to pay a corporate fee at least for 1 full year to build it, which meant that almost all of my expenses building my membership site, and I'll be transparent, it cost almost $8,000 because I didn't have the time to be building every one of those tools. I needed to have that help with that. I needed to have my web designer and her team build the platform because we tried to find one. One didn't exist the way we wanted it. So, there were some costs, but by the time I sold in 1 year, and I sold enough membership access to it for not to cost any money. And now I just slowly build new tools, products, and things, and I put them up there. It's something I can do as I go. If I have another big investment, I just had somebody, a corporate client, decide to buy it for their whole organization, I may choose to invest in somebody building some tools. I haven't decided yet. I think it's pretty robust as it is. But the point is, I don't spend money on hardly anything that I have here until somebody's already decided to buy, and it covers the cost of the build. And I didn't build, by the way, just again, for two super transparent, ethical conversation here. They did not buy something customized for their organization. They knew it was on my platform. So this is not like I've sold their stuff. This is something that I said, would you want it as a membership site and your people can access it? Yes. Great. Perfect. So sell it once you've sold it. The same thing with my first virtual program, 52 Weeks of Greatness. Once I had one person buy it, that paid for the membership license of that system for a year. So by having one person buy it, now granted, it wasn't my own cost to put into it. I had to sell more than one person on that. But, building that as you go. Now, I have made a few exceptions to that rule, this virtual program being one of them that you're in, the entrepreneurship, because I just felt like my business had reached a point where I could afford to make that investment. And I really, from a heart-based place, I wanted to make it. But when I was starting early in my earlier days, I never built anything until I had already sold it. Here's my other cost-saving hack is find low-cost development solutions. Fiverr is a great resource to be able to put up a request that you need somebody. You need somebody to design the deck of your next coaching cards, that you want a logo built, that you need somebody to create a unique image for you. You need somebody to go out and do research. Let's say, you have a brand of a light bulb and you want to research every possible product that you could buy that ships to Boulder, Colorado for less than $1 an item. Like you could put up a research request up there on there. Like basically you can have any type of service that you want that's legal through Fiverr. The other thing is to the right, the image around the student sitting back there, you can hire interns. And when I say hire, you don't even necessarily have to pay them anything. They're just thrilled to get the work experience. So for writing my book that's coming out now, The Flip Side of Failure, How to Harness and Recognize Greatness in Work and Life. I'm so excited it's coming out in May. That book would not have been possible without HR interns doing the interviews, the transcriptions, keeping track of people's headshots and bios, and checking to make sure that they've approved the interviews. And then my job was to take all those, really distill it down and write the book. But the research part, all of that heavy lifting, that was by interns. Also, don't hesitate to ask your family, friends. Bottom left corner is my mom and my dad. My mom is a wonderful artist, and so she did all of the artwork in this book. So all these little Zen doodles, and it's actually, the interesting thing is, I never set out to design this product. My mom came over and she was teaching. She was very upset, as the fine artist that she is, that my kids said that they weren't good at art because they used to draw all the time. And so she thought, well, we're not having that. Any grandchildren of mine are not going to say that they're not good at art. And she decided to teach them how to Zen doodle. And well, if they're going to have fun, my sister and I were there. We're like, well, we don't want to miss out on this. So she taught us all how to Zen doodle. In 20 minutes, we produced the most beautiful, and everybody's was unique, despite how she taught us all the same way. And so I said to my mom, grown-ups have that same hang up that they think they're not good at stuff anymore, including art. I wonder if we can combine my coaching with your artistic talent and produce this together. So I'm just so thrilled that it's so much fun, and I get to acknowledge her at the back on the back cover and all of that. So the point is, sometimes these products you come across totally by accident, and then now we can design this so that a company logo can go on the bottom, because I've had, this goes with a keynote that I deliver called Your Greatness Roadmap, Reaching Goals in Work and Life. And conferences can order one for everybody with the sponsor's logo on it if they want. But the point is, my dad's a retired graphic designer, so he designs my decks of cards. My mom does illustrations if I need it. You may have a spouse, a friend, a sibling who can help you out with things. And I'm just like, I'm sure you help them move. You give them coaching, you give them advice, all the things that you do for them, it's reciprocal. Canva is also a great resource to be able to put together posters, infographics, things. Some templates you have to purchase, a lot of them you don't have to. So it can be also a low cost development solution as well. So low cost, everybody. These things can look super professional without being expensive. Bundle your products into pitches. So this is an example of a pitch that was successfully taken up. This is how I do all my pitches. I've shared with you this hack. It's Lori Guest Sweet Spot Pricing. This is her formula, so I'm giving her credit again. But here's an example. Oh gosh, I've got the client name in that. Oops, sorry. It's okay. I don't think they would mind. I thought I checked to make sure it didn't have it. Anyway, point is, there's a basic package. There's a deluxe package, which you'll notice that I've thrown in some bonus things. And then the premium package is really where you get to load up some of your juicy stuff. If they choose to have this membership portal, it costs me exactly nothing to have another client. Well, I shouldn't say exactly nothing, maybe $25 of an in person to make sure that we get that set up and answer any of their questions that come up throughout the year. But that's it. So, but it's high value for them because a corporate license is $5,000. And similarly, for one-on-one, 1 hour best practice coaching calls, well, that would cost them thousands of dollars. So it may not take much more of my time, but it is a huge value for them to have that higher premium services. I've done it so that the premium option, everybody gets a branded, customized workbook. I've done it so that everybody in the audience gets a copy of the of my original workbook or of the book. Everybody could get a deck of coaching cards. And sometimes people get, we'll do a really premium. And one of the ways I ask this is, what is your budget? And you may think that not everybody will share it, but lots of people will share with you what their budget is. So I always try to make sure there is an option that is if they have a higher budget, that is at their higher budget level. Now, they may not choose to spend their whole budget on me. That's fine. But I have had clients who decide, and much to my surprise, that they want everything in that premium package offer. Just as a side note to this, and again, we've talked about this in the past, deluxe is always the offer that I try to encourage people to purchase. That's the middle, the sweet spot. Basic in my mind is like, I don't want to lose this client, but I also want to be fair to my other clients. So what's kind of like the stripped down version, most convenient for them, most convenient for me, best value money wise for them. But what's the deluxe package is what I think is probably going to be the one that flies. All right. Expense saving hack number 4 is fill your downtime. We often have cyclical businesses, especially being service-based. So how can you think of product development as filling that time if you're in a down cycle? So for example, let's say your clients go on holiday, or there aren't a lot of events that you need to do. If you're a trainer, you don't get booked for doing much training in July, for example. Great. July can be your product development month or your book writing month. That's when I wrote my last book that's coming out in May. Is I sat down and I wrote it, and I've got my chart here, still sitting here proudly of that. I would keep track every day. Here's the dates in July. Here's the word count, and I would fill it up. Kind of like, how people do fundraising campaigns like that. that kept me really focused and motivated so that by the end of the month, and it made me hustle halfway through the month when I wasn't halfway there. So, you could sort of use that same approach around, rather than, because this is how we can get in our own way as entrepreneurs. We can think, oh God, I'm not making any money this month. Oh my God, I need to find another client, or maybe I should take that client in 3 months from now that's asking me for only half. I was only willing to pay me half my fee. No. Instead, it is, well, I can't fill my time with all my months with work, or I can't be discounting my fee because that's time I need for producing this product. And I'll tell you, every single year, I bring in 5 figures from products. Sometimes a healthier 5-figure than others, but every year I do. So that reminds me, besides the fact that I feel really, really strongly I need to be fair and consistent to my past clients, that's why I have fee integrity. But the other thing is, I think, how am I not working on my own business if I'm constantly changing my prices for other people and working below what I'm worth as this credible expert? So, consider this as essential. You want downtime. Yahoo! You're not working every single month flat out. This is great. How do you use your mindset around, I am making money in a few months from now by investing the time now? And that's just a matter of managing your cash flow, everybody. Which, by the way, we talk about, as you may remember, in module number 2. So if cash flow is the challenge or an issue for you, go back to module 2, look at some of the hacks, and also I'm happy to help with that in the program. Last tip is trade value for value. I have had a membership to a yoga studio for the 4 years I have lived here. It'll actually be a total of 5 years that we will have had a partnership, and that's coming to an end. But I trade them a workshop a year, and which then they get me at a deal, because then I get a year of free yoga. This is not circumventing taxes or anything like this. This is trading value for value. So I feel grateful because now I don't have to pay in my extra tax dollars for a full yoga membership for a year to a studio that I love. And they feel great about it because the cost of me paying for a 1-year membership with them is way lower than the cost of what I would charge to do a workshop. And then they can offer that as value add to their staff to help better retain their staff. And they also can offer it as a cost or a revenue generator for their guests in their studio, their members. So you may think of that in terms of trade. If you have somebody who does branding and marketing, maybe you trade some coaching. I have, for a fundraiser, we raise money for cancer research every year. I traded a day of training in exchange for the entire event being paid for, the food, the room rental, the DJ, the sound equipment, everything, that they offered. We traded that. So that meant all the money that we raised completely went to that charity, rather than, we having to take a significant portion off for paying for expenses. So, if you're not already doing that, doing contras, trade value for value, I'd strongly encourage you thinking about that. So what questions do you have? Cindy, you're now the sole person back on the line. Sonia probably had to go teach a class. She's a teacher, hasn't been able to make that full leap just yet, but hopefully, Sonia, you were able to get back on and listen to the recording. Cindy, do you have questions or things that you've been noodling on as we've been talking? I'm going to unmute you if you do.
Okay. I don't know if I have questions.
Mm-hmm.
I have been noodling on a lot of different things, actually.
Yay.
Yeah, because, just hearing you talk, and I'm thinking back over clients, and you can start to see themes in the things that they're asking for that I hadn't really connected yet. So that was helpful in kind of really trying to figure out what to do first, what to do. So I'm excited to kind of start thinking about how to put some things together, because there are some consistent needs that I'm now beginning to recognize.
I love it. I love it. And you're such a motivated, hardworking person, Cindy, that you're going to be able to produce that stuff really quickly and easily. And by the way, if you ever want a recommendation of somebody of a particular service that you need, printing, layout, design, always, and this is for everybody, feel free to put a message out there in our Greatness Biz closed Facebook group, because there may be people in there who deliver that product or service, but also we'll have recommendations that we can make, because I would never recommend somebody I haven't used myself or know somebody else that's used them and had good things to say. So don't hesitate to let us know, because sometimes that can hold us up. It's like, well, I do that, but who would I use? Like, who would I hire to do that? So, let me know if I or others can help. And as you're thinking about those things, just a couple of things that I did in terms of like getting stuff out of my head out into the world. When I produced this Greatness Biz Hacks, if you scroll way back, I used to do hacks in our Greatness Biz group all the time. And I'd be sitting there while my kids were changing after a hockey practice, or I'm waiting for them, they're running late in gymnastics, or I'm waiting for the doctor or whatever. And I'll think of a tip and I'll put it in there. And then we organize them and produce this. The questions that we came up with for these, the compliments for this compliment deck. Brendan and I put questions out on Facebook that said, what's the best compliment you could ever receive? And we did that in LinkedIn too. And then we picked the top 52. And that's how we produced this deck. I mean, it was fast. These products, like these frog charms, I was looking for something to give away at events. And I can buy the frog charms in bulk on eBay. Now, the most of the cost is in the ribbon and in the tying it together and stuff. But, it was just poking around and exploring. And so, there's probably all kinds of ways in which you can be in the creative process without having to say, okay, I am creating that thing. If you know what I'm saying, and I'm happy to chat with you if you want in terms of specifics, if there was a particular product that you had in mind and you wanted to think through what your next step would be. But just want to give you a few examples about how we just started doing and saw how it came to be.
Okay. Yeah, that's exactly where my head went, was who would I use and how, where would the design be? So those are that's helpful. The Fiverr, I had forgotten about that one as well.
Yeah, and there's Upworks. There's a whole bunch of those companies out there. The Fiverr's the one that I haven't used a ton. I tend to hire Canadians. You might be, feel the same way about hiring Americans or hiring local people. So these cards are printed in Canada. All of my stuff is printed in Canada. The only reason why these are imported is because we just can't actually get them. I've tried to hire Canadian, 3D printer people. And each one of these frogs would be like $10. So I'm like, okay, well, I officially can't do that. Nobody feels that little tiny squishy frog's worth $10. But most of this stuff, you can locally source and locally hire people to do it. So that's why I say work, you can put in on your own Facebook page, looking for somebody who does good graphic design, or I have a small graphic design job. Do you have any recommendations? I bet you your local people will have great suggestions for you.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your one next step, Cindy? What's the thing you're going to do going forward from all the juicy things we've talked about?
I think my one next step is I got some time on Friday to just sit down and think through, if I were going to, kind of the practice, how to keep it going, how to structure something that would be really easy for people to just grab and use. The one thing that I do a lot is I do a lot of, solution-focused work with groups and facilitate. That's one thing that people are asking a lot, is how can I learn how to do facilitation with more than one person in this model? So kind of how would I put something like that together? And I already actually have something started now that I'm thinking about it that I can.
Well, you know what? And Cindy, you raised such a good point, and I never even mentioned this. So thank you for the 11th hour for coming up with such a juicy hack to kind of wrap things up is that most of these products and services that we're going to produce, we've already got started or we've built it. You know, the workshops that you deliver that people bring you in to do, all those different workshops you delivered over time and the different exercise you have, probably if you just printed out, this is what we actually did in the producing our first book. We printed out all the stuff we already had. So it's like, oh my gosh, we already have 20,000 words. That's great. And then we said, and what needs to join these things? And what's completely missing that we need to create from scratch? You probably will find you have already a facilitator's kit, or you already have the path, like, oh, what seems to be my path of teaching people? And you maybe haven't had to think about it up to now because it just comes naturally to you. But by looking at all the stuff that you already have, and I'm a very visual person, so I like to actually physically print it out. Other people don't need to do that, or they use Evernote, or they doodle, or whatever. So that's great. Like whatever your thing is. When I was writing my current book, I got Post-it notes, the big Post-it notes for the key themes, and then I put individual Post-it notes. Actually, no, sorry, not this book. It was producing this virtual program that you're in. I got individual smaller Post-it notes over the key things I wanted to make sure I taught or emphasized under each lesson.
Yep.
And that just allowed the creative process just to happen so much faster. And then was able to build one module every single week. And so I just stayed 3 weeks ahead of my modules. So when I had folks starting the program, I wasn't even done writing it. But part of why I didn't want to finish writing is I wanted to see how people were responding to it and then, you know, keep tweaking it. So anyway, I love that you're working with stuff that you've already got. Cool. So that's awesome. So on Friday, you're going to look at what people are already asking for, what you already have. What a great next step. I'm super excited to hear how that goes for you. Awesome. Well, we're at 1:00 Eastern Standard Time. So that's 11 your time, is it?
Yep, indeed.
Awesome.
Thank you. This was great.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you could come. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone on the line. And